With this now, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, we will proceed to the country statements and remarks by the heads of delegations. And at this juncture, I cordially invite the guest of honor to the World's Women's Forum, Her Excellency Dr. Nataša Pirc Musar, President of the Republic of Slovenia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with one survey which was conducted in my country, I think 6 months ago, among 5,000 boys and girls in primary school aged 14 and 15. One of the questions was, can women be leaders in politics? 48% of boys in my country answered that the women are not capable of doing that. I came here today, and on many gatherings like this, to prove them wrong. Distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, Mr. President, the Foreign Minister of Mongolia, esteemed colleagues and fellow advocates for a better world. It is an honor to stand before you today to address the World's Women's Forum. At the very outset, let me extend my heartfelt congratulations to our host, Mongolia, for celebrating the centennial of women's suffrage. I am particularly grateful to Mongolian President for his leadership in promoting gender equality, which sets a powerful example of partnership between women and men for a more just and equal society. We need positive examples of leadership as we continue to witness the global pushback on women's rights. The attempts to limit the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in all spheres and at all levels of our society affects us all, not only women, but also men. They also undermine our efforts for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Slovenia has long understood that gender equality is essential for progress. 32 years ago, when Slovenia became a member of the United Nations, only 14.4% of our parliamentarians and 7.7% of our government members were women. Today, these figures have risen to 35.5% in the parliament and 33.3% in the government. Our GDP per capita has also grown significantly, from just over $7,000 to approximately $34,000 today. These numbers speak for themselves. The inclusion of women is not just beneficial, it is essential for the prosperity of any society. And I will tell you one story here. In the European Union, an act was just recently enacted which is saying that at least 1/3 of the board in stock market companies should be represented by women. But there is analysis behind. The scientists calculated and evaluated that the companies perform better if there are women on boards, that the profits are higher. So that's the synergy we are looking for. But we need positive pushes to give women the opportunity. I often say this sentence to explain what's the difference between gender equality and gender equity, because at the end, equity means justice. If we discuss gender equality, we can simply explain it this way. We give everybody a pair of shoes. But if we discuss gender equity, not equality, we give a person a pair of shoes which fits the number of her or his feet. And this is a nice example why we need politics, policies, to boost the gender equity, not only gender equality. And to continue, I'm immensely privileged to serve as Slovenia's first female president. Our country has undergone significant economic and societal transformation within a single generation, with young women now on average better educated than young men. Education empowers women economically, and alongside quotas and affirmative action, it is the most powerful path to securing women's rights. Yet, the latest global gender gap report reminds us that we still have a long, long way to go, with full gender equality potentially taking up to 131 years to achieve. The knowledge and perspectives that women bring to the table, particularly those from diverse backgrounds, are crucial in addressing the most pressing issues of our time, such as climate change. It is a challenge that demands urgent and decisive action, and it is a challenge that requires the full and equal participation of women in leadership roles. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the attention the climate change discussions have received, our success in addressing remains limited. Let's consider some alarming facts. According to data, global CO2 emissions in 2023 were the highest ever recorded, and Copernicus reports that global surface temperature have already risen to nearly 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And ladies and gentlemen, these are not just numbers. These are warnings. Even more troubling, the International Monetary Fund has reported that fossil fuel subsidies reached an unprecedented $7 trillion, or 7.1% of global GDP in 2022. This is the highest yearly figure ever recorded. The consequences of these policies are already being felt, particularly by those most dependent on nature, our farmers. The summer in my own country, Slovenia, offered a stark example of the costs associated with climate change. The solidarity we show in response to extreme weather events is commendable, but it is reactive. As Mahatma Gandhi wisely said, the world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. This quote resonates deeply today as we confront the realities of our changing climate and the greed that has driven us to the brink of catastrophe. Ladies and gentlemen, as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, Slovenia has been a vocal advocate for the rights and empowerment of women and girls. Under the leadership of our first female foreign minister, Slovenia has pursued a feminist foreign policy, actively promoting the women, peace and security agenda. You know, when people ask us in my own country, why do you have to have a feminist foreign policy? You know, my first answer is, be aware that Slovenia is not a lonely island in the middle of the ocean. Everything is interconnected. Every single country in this planet needs to be aware of the dangers which are approaching our planet fastly. And we only have one planet. We don't have a planet B, that's for sure. So Slovenian representatives and our allies are vocal in international forums when we hear of horrible crimes conducted against girls in Palestine, Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine, Sudan, and in other war-torn countries. And there, in many countries, girls cannot go to school, are forced to marry, and suffer horrific sexual violence as well. We cooperate with Mongolia in peacekeeping operation training. The focus of our joint project is protecting the rights of women and girls in post-conflict zones. We help peacekeepers gain new knowledge on gender aspects in armed conflicts, on gender equality, and human dignity. Moreover, Slovenia advocates for gender-responsive and gender-transformative measures in global climate negotiations. We see Mongolia as a vital partner in these efforts. I commend the outcomes of the last year's female foreign ministers' meeting in Mongolia and the adoption of the Ulaanbaatar Declaration, which highlights the critical role of women in promoting peace, security, and climate action. Slovenia, where almost 60% of our territory is still covered with forests, has a long tradition in sustainable forestry, for example. We are proud to support a project here in Mongolia, Changing the Image of Forestry in Mongolia. That's the title. This project focuses on empowering women in the forestry sector. This initiative has already reached nearly 400 women across urban and rural areas of Mongolia. We believe that small actions like planting trees can grow into mighty forests, just as empowering women can lead to a profound societal change. Ladies and gentlemen, as Mongolian President so eloquently stated at the UN General Debate last September, just as women's roles and contributions are essential for both the harmony and prosperity of nations and well-being of families, women and female leaders play a critical role in the society and development of humankind. I wholeheartedly agree, Mr. President. The United Nations, our United Nations, must lead by example. It is high time for gender parity in UN leadership, and I strongly support the Rotation for Equality initiative, which seeks to secure gender parity in the leadership of the UN General Assembly. It is nearly 79-year history, 74 men and only 4 women have presided over this main policy-making body. This imbalance is unacceptable, and I call on all countries represented here today to support this initiative as we approach the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Plan of Action. Can I just tell you a couple of more numbers to show the significance of women around the globe? In European Union, where there are 27 member states, we have only 3 female presidents. In Greece, Malta, and Slovenia. In wider Europe, there are only 7 female presidents. In Moldova, Kosovo, Iceland just recently, and one more, I forgot. There are 7. Do you know how many female presidents we have all over the globe? 17. 17. And there are 193 members of the United Nations, and there are 206 members of the International Olympic Committee. It's easier to become a member of the International Olympic Committee than a member of the United Nations. Why am I telling you these numbers? We are facing many challenges nowadays. Climate change, wars. There are 55 armed conflicts currently going on around the globe, which is the highest number after the Second World War. And if we take into account that we have 206 countries, that means that we have 206 presidents, some kings and queens, and 206 prime ministers. Altogether, 412 leaders of this planet who have a duty and obligation to serve to 8 billion people. Are we all aware of the duties and obligations which we do have on our shoulders? I do hope that our future is going to be more bright, that more leaders are going to be statesmen and stateswomen and not only politicians who work just the way to win the next elections. In closing, I wish Mongolia a joyful celebration of its centennial of women's suffrage in a very successful form. Together, let us continue to lead with courage, vision, and an unwavering commitment to gender equality and equity and fight against climate change. Thank you all for coming to Ulaanbaatar.
Thank you very much, Madam President, for the inspiration and confidence you have rendered to the women leaders. These days, Mongolia and Slovenia are celebrating the success of 30 years of close cooperation, and we have just chatted out the roadmap for the next upcoming 30 years of cooperation, and we believe that it will be as prosperous as we've just had a big goodbye to the past 30 years.